I was repeatedly raped over a 2-year period by a policeman, and they just turned up at my house and they invited themselves in. But that's the sort of stuff that they were doing. It was with vulnerable women. If anybody ever found out, no one was going to believe me. No one was going to believe me over a cop. And everything that happened was a huge cover-up. They had 72 other women come forward. I was doing it for them. I was doing it for everybody. It wasn't the New Zealand police that hurt me. It was individuals within.
Could you please introduce yourself and where you're from initially?
Ko Louise Nicholas, ko Tawhio te Maunga, ko Rangataki te Awa, nā te huia, nā te koro nā hapu, nā te manawa te iwi. Kia ora and welcome. I was born here in Rotorua. I spent the first 16 years of my life in Murupara and came back to Rotorua and have been here ever since. Okay, so we have just set up the Louise Nicholas Trust. The reason for that is the mahi that we do is around supporting survivors and their whānau and leading them through the criminal justice system. So
survivors of sexual abuse.
Yes, and of late survivors of family harm as well. So we've noticed that there is not a lot of support for our wahine and our children when it comes to family harm. So we're kind of like stepping into that role here in Rotorua as well. So yeah, it's all about ensuring that our survivors are well informed, have an understanding of the process that they're about to embark on, and that they're heard and that they are definitely believed. And what's cool about our little organisation is that we're independent. So we're grateful for the funding that we get in order to do this mahi, but it's really important that our survivors and their whānau know exactly what that they'll be walking through. And for us, it's pretty cool to see our survivors at their lowest, if I can put it that way. And once this process is finished, they walk out of that court 10 foot tall. Their whole demeanour just has changed. Why? Because they finally got to tell their story. It comes from my own journey. So I'm a survivor of child and adult rape from the age of 13 through to the age of 19. I was repeatedly raped over a 2-year period in Murupara by a policeman. And how that all came about was that with Murupara, it's this amazing, beautiful place. And I lived there with my mum and dad and my 3 brothers. And during the 1980s, they brought in what they termed live deer recovery. So basically choppers would come in, fly deer out and put them on deer farms. That's basically how it worked. But what was happening too, unfortunately, was there was a lot of chopper crashes, so a lot of choppers down. And being a big hunting area as well, Te Uruwera, it's just an amazing place for hunting. So people get lost. So my mum and dad actually got involved with the Murupara Search and Rescue, and it was from there that we got to know the local police. And when I was about 13, one of them asked if I would babysit his children. And I said, yeah, absolutely, a few bucks. And so that's how it all started. But what was happening is that one day, the first incident was when I was walking home and walked past the police station, and he called me in. But what was interesting is that he brought me in through the side entrance and locked the door, which straight away I thought weird, really weird. And then instead of taking me into the office area where I've been hundreds of times, he took me into the meal room, and it was there that he raped me on the meal room table at the age of 13. And that's how it started. He got very clever, as most of these type of people do. And as an older person looking back, it was like he groomed my family first, and then started on me. And by saying that, like, he would ring my father and he would say to my dad, hey, I need Louise to babysit. Dad would say, yeah. I'll be saying no. Dad will say, why not? And I'll say, oh, look, I've got homework to do, or you can do it there. So I was coming up with all these excuses, and in the end, I had to go. And he would come home after some time, and he would rape me again while his children slept in the other room. And then when I was 15 years old, I remember coming in from college, and they were there. Him and his wife were there, and my father said to me that I was going to be shifting to Rotorua with them. And I went, well, no, I'm not. And my father said, and even my mum was there, was saying, no, this is a good opportunity, better school, blah, blah, blah. And I'm going, no. And they were going, why not? And I said, look, I've got my mates here, I've got my horses, I've got, this is my life here, I prefer this school. And I was told no. And in the end, my mum, she kind of like looked at me and she said in this really weird voice, why don't you want to go, Louise? And I mean, the dude's sitting right there. And I'm going, well, if that's what you want, then that's what I'll do. So I ended up shifting and boarding with them. And of course, the violence still continued. And I lasted 3 months. And I don't know if it was the phone bill, because back in that day, you used to, pick up, go down to the corner phone box and, talk to somebody and say, I want to make a collect call back to Murupara. And I did that most nights. And in the end, my father came and picked me up. And as we were driving back through into Murupara, just as we came in under the bridge, my father turned to me and he said, I'm so disappointed in you, Louise. And I mean, that was one of the lowest times of my life, is to hear that and not being able to tell my father why I didn't want to be living in Rotorua. And over that 2-year period, I did try to take my own life. And I did so for the reason that if anybody ever found out, no one was going to believe me. No one was going to believe me over a cop. It was as simple as that. What was interesting was when I actually got back to Murupara, my typing teacher, who actually I didn't even know back then that she was the guidance counsellor as well, pulled me aside one day, and she actually said that she had noticed that I wasn't the same. I actually told her what he had been doing. She wasn't quite sure how she was going to help me. Would it be okay if she actually called this? He was a psychiatrist dude, and the psycho dude, he turned around and he says, well, there's really nothing you can do about that, because no one would believe her that she's been raped by a cop. And so it was kind of like, now what? It was what it was. The one thing I did say to her, I said, you can never ever tell my parents. She broke that promise. She told my mum. As any parent, she just wanted to go find him and kill him. But that was the reason why we never told my father. And because we knew that if Dad did find out, he would have taken one of those rifles that he had, and he would have hunted him down, and he would have killed him, and then that would have been my fault. And it's my fault that my father killed a person and he's now in jail. So that, and I guess that's it with a young person. Well, for myself, it was like I had to protect everybody. What's happening to me is happening. There's not much I can do about it, but I can do a lot to save other people. And so protecting my family, protecting my father, protecting my brothers, protecting my friends, that's all that I had. And I felt I needed to do. So that's why it was that whatever happened, okay, it's happened, there's nothing I can do about it, and just forget about it. And then when we moved into into Rotorua eventually as the timber industry in Murupara just died. And then I got a job. I was 18, 19 at the time. I was just, I thought I was all good. I thought, like with my mum would always ask if I was okay. I said, yeah, you know, it's what's done's done sort of thing. There's nothing, you know, let's just move on. Let's just keep moving forward and forget about it because there's nothing you can do about it. So don't worry about it, sort of thing. I would, yeah. I mean, you know, when you get to that stage where all you want to do is just die, and you try to do that, yeah, lowest you can go, I guess. But somebody was obviously from upstairs looking after me because it just didn't happen. Oh, it was cool. We moved to Rotorua. I through Dad and his connections, we knew that this dude had actually left Rotorua and was no longer here, so I felt safe. This is a good place, a safe place. And so yeah, we set up home. It was just my brother and I, and Mum and Dad. Everything was going swimmingly. I got a job at the Bank of New Zealand as a typist telephonist, and that was really cool. And I actually left the nest, went flatting with a couple of people from the bank, and one day I got a knock at the door. I was at home unwell, and I got a knock at the door, and I thought, who's this? Opened up the door, and there were these two men standing there, and I said, yeah, can I help you? And they go, you're Louise. I went, yeah. And introduced himself as Brad, and the other one is Clint. And our mate Bob told us that you're here. And it's kind of like, Bob. So Bob was a cop that was stationed out at Murupara as well. And look, I used to babysit his kids, but he was a neat guy. Nothing ever untoward happened. But these, and they just turned up at my house, and they invited themselves in, and it was in my lounge. And yeah, both of them raped me that day as well. And that. You know, because you've always got in the back of your head that voice saying, well, no one's going to believe you, no one's going to believe you. The cops, no one's going to believe you. Well, of course no one's going to believe me. Hell, no point in saying anything. And this happened regularly. They used to come around. How the hell did they know I was home? And then one day I was walking home from work, and Bob, I hadn't seen him for ages, and he pulled up and he asked about Mum and Dad, and you know, how the family were, and you know, we're just having a chit chat on the side of the road, and he said, I'll give you a ride home. And I said, no. I said, mate, I'm just literally a 5-minute walk. It was just around the corner and down the road. He goes, nah, get him, mate, I'll give you a ride home. And I said, oh yeah, okay, sweet as. Jumped in the car. He drove straight past my house, straight past my road. And I said to him, where are you going? He goes, oh, I've just got to drop something off at a mate's place. And he turned the next block and down to the end of this cul-de-sac, and he pulled into this driveway. And when he pulled in, I looked up, and there was Clint and Brad on the balcony. And you know what? Straight away, I knew I'm the here. That was the first thought. And for seemed like hours, bad happened. And what was really freaky, when all that bad stuff was happening, it was like having an out-of-body experience. So I was actually seeing, it's kind of like I was up on the ceiling and I'm looking down, and I could see everything that was happening. And I could, you know, I picked out the drawers and what was on the drawers and the colour of the curtains and all the stuff. I could see it, and I'm yelling at this dude who kept coming in and going out and coming in and going out, and I'm screaming at him, just, you know, make them stop. And in the end, what happened was all I heard was Sholem. Bob Sholem turn around and say, "That's enough." And it stopped. And then he just said, "Go and have a shower." And I gathered up my clothes and I showed me to the bathroom, and I got in the bathroom and I'm trying to get the hot water tap to work, and because all I wanted to do, I just wanted to burn and scrub that ugliness off, and I couldn't get the hot tap to work. I couldn't. It just would not work. So I had this cold shower, and I remember just I didn't even dry myself, I just got dressed and I walked out of the house and down the stairs and got into Sholem's car, and he drove me home. And the last thing I remember is getting out of his car. As I was getting out of his car, he turned to me and he said, "I'm sorry, Lou." That's the last thing I remembered. But this went on until I convinced, because I actually got to meet a guy through workmates, and convinced him, let's go flatting. And we went flatting. His name's Ross. And I was so scared that these guys were going to find me again. I actually went out and bought an engagement ring. Ross and I had been going out for quite a while by this stage, but I went out and bought an engagement ring. And he came home from work and I said to him, "Let's get married." And he goes, "Yeah, no." And I'm going, "Yeah, no, let's do it. It's going to be real cool and all this." And I literally convinced this guy to marry me. And that kept me safe. That kept me alive. We were married and I was 20. Yeah, 1988. 89. No, 88. 88. We got married. And in May 1988. And my daughter was born in July 1989. So in about 1990, I actually had, by then we had 2 daughters. And my father-in-law, Ross's dad, we call him Grandpa, farmer, and Grandpa actually said to me, he said, "So what's your problem?" What do you mean? He said, "To be honest," he said, "you're kind of like a sandwich short of a picnic." He said, "You're not quite right." That was a bit hard-hitting, because I thought I was normal as, and I said to him, "Well, maybe it's because of this." And I gave him a bit of an overview of my life that nobody knew about, and without too much detail, but enough. And he was quiet for quite a while, and then in the end he said to me, he said, "You know what, mate?" He said, "It would have been easier if it was drugs, alcohol, or another bloke, but we're going to get you the help you need." And he said, "When we get back, go and see back in the day it was the family doctor." So I went and saw the doctor and he put me on to counselling. And so I went and saw a counsellor. Actually, I went through a couple of counsellors because sometimes you just don't connect, and that's okay. And so this went on for quite a while. And then in the end, I went to one counselling session and we started talking. I said, "You know what, I'm so fucking angry." Excuse my language. I said, "I'm so fucking angry." And she said, "What do you want to do with that anger?" And I said, "I know what I have to do, and that's I've got to go to police. I've got to tell police what has happened." And the counselling, it helped. It helped me understand that everything that had happened to me actually wasn't my fault. And why should I carry this? It's not mine to carry. I need to get rid of it. And the only way I can get rid of it is to hold these men to account. And the only way I can do that is actually go to the police. And so that was arranged thanks to my counsellor. And I remember walking into the Rotorua police station for this appointment to meet with this lady, this detective, and she was about 15, 20 minutes late. And when she walked out, she said to me, "I'm sorry, Louise, we can't do this right now. Something's come up. We'll have to make another time." And I looked at her and I just said to her, "Get fucked," and turned around and walked out. And I was like, "Never going back there. I'm never doing this again, blah, blah, blah." I was just so over it. And a few days later, I get this phone call from this detective inspector, John Dewar, and he said that he's the boss of the Rotorua station. And he said, I'm sorry that we couldn't get to you with this detective. He said, but I will be taking your statement. And so I rang my father and I said, hey, I said, this detective inspector, he said he's going to take my statement. I said, I don't want to do it, Dad. And he said, no. He said, you can do it. He said, because, that's the big kahuna, that's the boss. So they're taking this seriously. And so I said, okay, I trusted my father. And so, but he said, you take your mother. So Mum and I went back to the station a few days later. And I remember walking into his office, and there was all this police memorabilia there. And when that really bad incident happened after I was picked up, the one horrible thing that those men did to me was they raked me with a police baton, a wooden police baton. And because when I walked into his office, that was sitting right on the front of his desk, and because I kind of like froze, and I'm trying to figure out, what do I do here? I mean, there's the weapon, that's all that sort of thing. And, it's like Mum was saying, but that's not the weapon. That's not, So anyway, he said to me, okay, we're going to get you to tell what happened in Murupara. And I said, well, what about what happened in Rotorua? And he said, no, we'll leave that till later because it's separated. And I go, oh yeah, okay then. I mean, I don't know how shit works. And so I gave him a statement about exactly what happened in Murupara with this cop, and he had the statement all typed up, and I read it and sounded all right, looked good. It's pretty much what I said. Signed it, and I said, right, this is what happened in Rotorua. And he said, no. He said, we won't worry about that. We'll just investigate Murupara first, and that cop. And look, honestly, within a few weeks, he had actually arrested that ex-policeman. He was now out of the force, and shit, we're going to court. And so it was the first experience I've had. And so I go to court, and I give my evidence, and Mum gives her evidence, and the school teacher, she gave evidence as well. And then this detective inspector, Jua, he gives his police evidence. And then he comes into the witness room and says, he said, sorry, mate, he said, the trial's been aborted. And I said, well, what's aborted? And he says, well, it's like defence have been playing silly buggers, so we can't carry on with this trial. And I said, well, what happens now? And he said, well, we're going to have to have another trial. So anyway, sometime later, we were back in court. I gave my evidence. Mum gave hers. School teacher gave hers. Jewel started giving his. And again, there was another aborted trial. And I'm going, so what the hell happens now? He goes, well, we have to come back again. I went again. He was giving what they term hearsay evidence. And apparently, I don't know what that was, but that's the reason why those trials were aborted. And third time, I was pregnant with my third child, and I can tell you right here, right now, that I was the witness from hell. I was a total bitch. I was asked questions, and I was going, I don't know, can't remember. I just wasn't there. I just thought, nah, because it's all going to happen again. This is, So Mum gave her evidence, school teacher her evidence. Jua gave his evidence. We got through it. That dude was found not guilty on all charges. And I blame myself for that. That is my fault, because I was the witness from hell. And I had no support. Like you didn't have support back in those days with somebody that you didn't know. You relied on police to tell you how stuff works. Yeah, so basically what happened was that once the trials had finished, there was the higher up police did an investigation into the handling of these trials by him, and they found that he had perverted the course of justice. And the reason being was that he was their mate, and he was protecting them. That's why he never ever came back to me and said, okay, tell me what happened in Rotorua with those other three men. My husband didn't trust him from day one. He said there's something not right about him. And I kept saying to Ross, I said, well, no, I said, he's a good dude. He's helping me. He's doing, all the right things. And yeah, I did feel like he had my back. I mean, he was, to me, he was amazing. And it's interesting because people say, well, why? Why did you think he was amazing? Why did you put him on this pedestal? And the reality is that he was the first cop I had anything to do with that never hurt me. And so, but knowing really, in hindsight, he did. He was protecting his mates. He allowed them to do what they did, literally. So, it's life goes on. There's nothing you can do about it. And I had my third daughter. We moved out to the country, just out of Rotorua, and had an amazing living, literally an amazing life. My husband was working for Fonterra. He was, driving the tankers. I did a lot of relief milking in the district. My kids were going to a country school. It was just, life was, it was so neat. I was able to get horses. My oldest daughter and I were right into horses. My middle daughter was right into motorbikes with her father and used to go off trail riding. And I just, one day this dude knocked on the door and he said that he was a reporter for the Dominion Post. Didn't even know what that was. He said it's a Wellington-based newspaper. Oh, okay, cool. And he said that he has the evidence to prove that the trials that Dewar did back in Rotorua and everything that had happened was a huge cover-up. And I said to him, nah. I said, Dewar was a good guy. He looked after me. He did everything he could. I said it was really dumb that they, investigated him and then he lost his job, which eventually he did, and all this sort of stuff. And I went, nah. And then with this reporter turning up, he said, well, look, I've literally got two files. So he said, I've got the good Dewar file and the bad Dewar file. And he showed me the good Dewar file. Yeah, he was this amazing cop and he did all this, blah, blah, blah. And then he showed me what he deemed the bad Dewar file. And it was just stuff that he had collected over quite a few years, this reporter. And then I started seeing stuff and he started explaining stuff to me. And it was like, what the? It was right there in front of me that Dewar had covered everything up. And to actually see it and to hear it, it was like, holy hecka, what? Why? Why did he do this? And it's like Phil Kitchen, the reporter said, those were his mates. And that's how that all, and I'm going, oh my God. And I said, so, okay, what do you want to do? And he said, I want to tell you a story. And I went, yeah, nah. Nah. He said, I don't think you're the only victim of these men. And I said, oh, I know I won't be. There'd be heaps of women out there who've gone through what I've, absolutely. And it was at that point when I went home and when Ross came home and I said to him, look, this reporter, this is what he said and all that, and he wants to do a story on it. And Ross says, well, do it. And I said, but I can't. I've got to protect you guys. I mean, he said, but here's your opportunity to tell what actually happened. And so I said to this guy, Phil, okay, well, let's do it. And so we started. And it was just and it wasn't just doing an interview. This was, that was November 2023. And he said, we're going to run the story end of January 2004. 2004. So 2003 to 2004, sorry. And it was incredible what we actually did, what he found out, witnesses that he got, people that he was able to talk to, who were able to clarify. It was just this amazing story. But he, in conversations that we had, he had over the years had heard rumours about the boys' club here in Rotorua, in the Bay of Plenty pretty much, but mainly here in Rotorua, this boys' club of police. And then one day he got a phone call from a cop who said, this is actually happening. there was a girl who was raped at a house with a baton by Shipton, Sholem and Rickards. He gave the street address, he gave everything, and that's so. But they didn't know who I was. He didn't know who I was. But over his course of several years, actually, he finally found me. So basically, it was, you know, like Rotorua. Well, every station throughout New Zealand had a bar, and that's where, you know, they'd go and get on the piss, but they would also take girls up there, and a lot of stuff went down in those bars. They were taking those girls and doing bad shit to them as well. That's what it was like here. I can't speak for any other district, but my understanding is that it was like that throughout the whole of Motu. And so, yeah, in 2004, January the 31st, 2004, that story broke. So in that article, what we actually called for from the government was a commission of inquiry into police conduct. That's what we were calling. That was the whole point of doing the story, and actually holding these men to account as well. And in February, Helen Clark, who was the Prime Minister at the time, she said there will be a commission of inquiry into police conduct, and it'll be headed by Margaret Baisley. And then a few weeks after that, I get a phone call, and it was this cop. And he said, I'm Detective Sergeant Steve somebody. And I said, oh, yeah. And he goes, we're going to put together a team of investigators, and we're going to investigate the allegations that have come out of the media. And I said, nah. And he said, no. He said, we're pulling it, and it'll be a team from the South Island, not the North Island, and we want you on board. We need to investigate these allegations. I said, no. And he said, why don't you want to do this, Louise? And I said, because I don't trust you bastards. And he said, but it'll be a full and thorough. I said, I don't care what it is. I said, you guys can do your full and thorough investigation, but you're not going to like what you find out, so you're just going to do a dewar and sweep it all under the carpet. I said, because that's how you guys roll. I said, nah. Hung up on him. Husband standing there, he said, who was that? And I said, oh, it's a bloody cop. They're going to do this investigation. They want me to, you know, give statements and all this sort of crap. And he goes, well, you're going to do it. I said, no, I'm not. He said, you have to do it. I said, no, I don't. I said, I don't trust them. They're just going to not like what they find. They're going to do a dewar. And he goes, you've finally got an opportunity, missus, to right the wrongs of the past. And he said, the only way you can do that is to sit down with police, and you've got to do it. Yeah, and next thing I know, two other women, they found two other women. And Shipton, Sholem and Rickards were charged with what they did to me, and also charged with the rape of a woman at Mount Maunganui. In the same, it was like 1986. And then they found another woman. She literally exactly what happened to me happened to her. Yeah. And it was just flipping. It's kind of like you knew there'd be others. What's interesting, Dave, is that that investigation by the team of police were called Operation Austin. They had 72 other women come forward who had similar stories to tell, but didn't want to go through an investigation process because a lot of those women were wives or girlfriends of police. These type of cops were doing back in those days, and like taking young women up to the police bar, and they would have what they called was it Sunday school, and so they'd go to a cop's house and bad stuff would happen there. Like, you know, a young woman would be taken there. I know of one girl that they actually investigated during my time as well, where she wanted to join the police, and you know, they took her for you know, in the car with them, which was all legit. I mean, the school knew about it, all this sort of stuff. But they took her to that same house and did exactly the same thing. But it could never be proven. But that's the sort of stuff that they were doing. It was with vulnerable women. Yeah. So the woman at Mount Maunganui, that trial went in, was in Wellington in 2005. It was awful what she went through. She was lured to the life-saving tower on Mount Maunganui Beach with those 5 men. She thought she was going on a date, and she ended up there, and they raped her over a very long period of time. And she, like me, like a lot of our survivors, thought, well, no one's going to believe me because of who they are. And it wasn't until I came forward and she saw that she told her story as well. And that's when they investigated that, and that's when, yeah. So huge journey for her. But unbelievable that, you know, it was for all of us actually, when they were found guilty, we all celebrated alongside her, because we thought, yeah, you know, because we've done the right thing. We've actually done the right thing. And those men, there was Shipton and Sholem, but there was also 3 other men, and they were all found guilty of her rape. And that they were sentenced to 8.5 years. So that was in 2005. But what was really interesting, Dave, to be honest, is that the Crown prosecutor, they actually wanted the 3 of us together. So the woman from the Mount, myself, and the other young lady, so they wanted our case to be heard together because of the similar fact evidence. And it was really interesting, because when I eventually read the findings as to why we weren't brought together, it was because the woman at Mount Maunganui, they used handcuffs on her, but they didn't use handcuffs on myself, and they didn't use handcuffs on the other woman. So that's what stopped it. And I was going, you're kidding me. They did everything else literally the same except for handcuffs. Yeah, that was, yeah, so I was Auckland High Court. I remember giving evidence. So the thing so it was Rickards, Shipton, Sholem, and they all had defence counsel each, and they were all QCs at that time, Queen's Counsel, so they were the bigwigs of the lawyer world. Yeah, so the trial was for 3 weeks, but the public did not know that Shipton and Sholem were already in jail. They kept that. Nobody knew that. The jury went out to deliberate, and they took 3 days. And it was Friday. It was a Friday, and we got the call that the jury had made a decision. And so they started. And I always thought it's going to be difficult for the first half of those charges, because it had a lot to do with what happened at my flat, and bits and pieces like that. But Rutland Street, what happened there, and you know, it was now we got him. And next minute, you know, we hear the not guilty, not guilty, not guilty. I'm going, yeah, no, I get that. And next thing I remember, I'm being pulled out of the court, and I'm going, well, hang on a minute, I haven't heard the guilties. What are you doing? And my husband just kept saying to me, it's finished, it's over, it's done. And I said, but I haven't heard guilty verdict. And he said, there are none. And I was going, what the? And I'm being dragged down the stairs and out the back door of the High Court, and you know, the police are there and all these cameras are there, and it was just kind of like, I'm still trying to process what the hell's just gone on here. And he said, mate, they've found not guilty on your charges. So again, I started to blame myself. Well, you know, obviously I didn't say things right, or obviously, you know, I didn't give good evidence, I didn't do this, I didn't do that. And there was all this snot and tears and anger going on around me, and in the end I just turned around and said to everybody, just stop. Just stop. I just said to them all, you know, we may have lost that battle in courtroom 12, but I said we've won the war by coming forward. We've done everything we can. We have won this. And somebody go and get me a beer. I just said to Ross, get me home. I just want to go home.
Can I ask, so with that, what were they arguing during that time? Because it was the consent, wasn't it? They were
Yeah.
doing it completely.
Yeah, it was everything that happened I consented to. It was just, like I say, it was similar fact, very similar offending. And again, it came down to, it was consensual. She wanted it, she turned up, she did this, she did that. I was there, those men were there. They know what happened. They know what they did. So it's like, I did what I could. And I'm damn proud. And if I had to go through all that shit again, yeah, I would. Yeah, and it was kind of like I had those 72 other women sitting there with me, you know. I was doing it for them. I was doing it for everybody. I thought, you know, you can do this. Yeah.
So what happened with her case?
So that came back not guilty as well. And that was another hard pill to swallow. But it was then that the country got to know that those two had already been locked up. Shipton and Sholem were already in prison. And that's when the marches started and the outrage took place. Oh, massive, massive support. And there were marches held right across the Motu. You know, we believe you, Louise. And, you know, this is, it wasn't just for me, it was actually for all survivors of sexual violence. And you know, changes need to be made in our judicial system. We can't change the laws, but we can change the process. And so that's basically what came out of all of that. You know, you're sitting in Parliament in front of a minister, and you're just telling them, well, everything that's happening in the courts is crap. It is. It's not a safe place for people. Things need to change. But also, with the Commission of Inquiry into Police Conduct, a lot of, they had 47 recommendations that had to be adhered to. And so that's when we had this massive culture shift in the New Zealand Police. And I remember a cop coming up to me and shaking my hand and saying, thank you for doing what you've done. He said, I'm sorry that you've had to go through this and what you've been through, he said, but thank you for helping us shift this culture. And he said, you know, because we saw it all the time. And I says, well, why didn't you say anything? And he said, because you did your job. Sad, eh? So there was a lot of good coppers out there that knew what was happening, that saw what was happening, but basically felt they could do nothing about it. And I think that's wrong. It's so wrong. So with the recommendation, like, there is no more bars in police stations. You know, that drinking culture, but that whole way you deal with survivors of sexual violence has changed for the better. It's just been absolutely amazing. You know, we've got the adult sexual assault team, you know, these specialised police. We've got the evidential videos. We've got, you know, child protection teams that you know, with specialist interviewers for our children and that. And it's just the whole process, and the attitudes of police, just so different. So it was worth it, if I can put it that way. it was actually worth it. Well, eventually Shipton and Sholem were released. Clint Rickards, while he was stood down, because he was actually a assistant commissioner, so he was right up there. They were actually grooming him to be the next commissioner. And I got a lot of backlash because Rickards would have been the first Māori commissioner. And because of what I did, that was never going to happen. And so I did get the hate for that, which is really sad. But hey, it is what it is. He actually, while he was stood down, he did a law degree, so he's now a lawyer. I mean, even when he was, and I mean, I heard this from people that were sitting in the same room as him when he was doing his law degree, and they hated it because his arrogance and his just knowing what he did. Well, the crazy thing was, I don't know how people get your phone number. I don't know, and your email and all. And so I started getting calls and emails from survivors of sexual violence saying, is it safe to go to the police? How do you do it? What do we do? And so I started supporting these women going to the police, and I wasn't just talking about here in Rotorua. I'm talking from Kaitaia to the Bluff. It was right across. So I was travelling the country supporting women. And what came of that was there is an organisation called Rape Prevention Education in Auckland, RPE, and the director there, Dr. Kim McGregor, heard that that's what I was doing. So she managed to get me a little bit of funding to support me in travelling and doing this support. And so that was back in 2008. This all started, and I haven't turned back. And don't look at the end. It's about the journey, not the destination. It's about if he's found not guilty, or if she's found not guilty. It's not because the jury or the judge didn't believe you. It's simply because there wasn't quite enough evidence to prove beyond reasonable doubt, which is the standard that is set. And yes, it all looks like it's in favour of the defendant, but at the end of the day, that person is innocent until proven guilty. So yeah, their rights are a lot higher than those of our survivors. But never look at it as the destination is there. It's not. And it's also okay for those that do the offending to reach out for help. The reality is they can get help. I mean, I've got to give. There are some that they should never ever see the light of day outside of the jail again. But people can change. They can change. And there was one guy, Dave, that honestly, he will stick with me forever. And he is a gang member, and all he wants to do, and he's tried, and that's the reason why he's in prison, is kill cops. And he said to me, so why didn't you want to kill those cops? Didn't you want to kill those cops? And I said, well, yeah, at some stages, yeah. Every time I saw a police uniform, I just, my anxiety levels, all I want to do is see them dead. I went through all those stages. But I said, and like yourself, you see that uniform, all you want to do is kill a cop. But the thing being is that you're going to take somebody's life, and it wasn't the cop that actually hurt you. Just got to look at it that way, just you want to get revenge, but you're getting revenge with the wrong people. Yeah, and like, that guy was raped by a cop at the age of 8. And so you had that true understanding of why he wants to kill cops. He turned to me afterwards and he said, you're right. I never thought of it like that. People say to me, well, how can you work alongside police? Look what they did to you. I said, no, that was one of my biggest learnings, was it wasn't the New Zealand police that hurt me. It was individuals within. And that's what I told my mate in the prison. It was an individual that hurt you. And that's why I can do what I do. And I work alongside police, and I have a lot of respect for the police and what they do in supporting our survivors. Mind you, if I've got to tell them a few things, I will tell them a few things. I've pulled a cop out of a witness room and told him to pull his head in. How dare he speak to my survivor like that? Things have changed so much from back in my day. A lot of our survivors are unsure of actually what they want to do. So they come to us and we sit down with them, we explain the process, and then we connect them with specialist police. And when I say specialist police, there are police that are just for survivors of sexual violence. So they're called the Adult Sexual Assault Team, or if it's for our children, it's the Child Protection Team. And we actually bring them here into our little office and have that conversation so that they have an understanding of what it is that we do and what it is that the police do and the whole process that surrounds that. Now, our survivors can actually give their statement, and nowadays, not like back in my day, it's actually what they call an evidential video interview. So that is actually going to the police station in a special room with a specialist interviewer. And it's basically free recall. So they tell their story of what has happened. And from there, police will investigate. So they will make a decision on whether or not there is actually enough evidence to move forward with an investigation, move forward with charges. And sometimes there's not. But for a lot of our survivors, the fact that they've actually told. Now, they could decide after that interview, actually, no, I don't want to do anything just yet. I'm not quite right, and I'm not where I need to be for myself. I need more counselling. And police will go, that's fine. It's actually okay. So it could be 6 weeks, it could be 6 months, it could be 6 years down the track when our survivors are actually ready to start that journey into the criminal justice system. Yeah, I did. I received I call it an ONZM. So it was a Queen Medal, which just absolutely blew me out of the water. It's never about stuff like that, doing the mahi that you do. It's not about, rewards at the end. But that one, that was a huge day. And I was very honoured to have been awarded with New Zealand Order of Merit or something, I think it's called. Yeah, it's quite pretty. But my biggest...
What was the particular reason they gave?
For supporting survivors of sexual violence. Yeah. But my biggest achievement and my biggest blowout, holy hecker, was actually being given being patron to Wing 290 New Zealand Police recruits. So that's, and that was in 2015. And it was that was a massive honour, and it did, for me, it was like, look how far we've both come, so that was massive. Yeah, never be afraid to reach out, honestly. And like I've said, it just telling is the start of the healing process. And you're in control of who you tell. And we're always here to support. But I'd like to put it out to our tāne as well. Please, we know that bad stuff happens to our men and boys. Don't be afraid to come forward, because your voice is just as important as that of our wahine and our girls. So there is somebody here for you all. You just got to reach out. Don't be afraid to reach out. And like I say, you're in control of your destiny. You're in control of your journey. We're just here to guide you through it.